welcome to Served Up. This podcast is where hospitality meets leadership and where we take an honest look at the business of beverage. I'm Bridget Albert. I've spent my career building cocktail programs, mentoring rising talent, judging competitions, and advocating for women in our industry. I'm joined by my co-host, Eric Heemer, one of only 5 people in the world to hold both the Master Sommelier and Master of Wine titles. His depth of knowledge and global perspective brings tremendous insight to every conversation. This is Served Up.
Welcome to Served Up. This is Eric, going solo. My co-host Bridget has the day off. My guest today is Alice Tetienne, Cellar Master and Vineyard Director for the historic Champagnes of Henroit, founded in 1808 in Reims, the heart of Champagne. Native to the Champagne region and from a winemaking family, Alice has Champagne in her blood. She holds numerous degrees in viticulture and winemaking, and a resume of prestigious winemaking positions over the past decade reads like a who's who in Champagne. Her experience and expertise paid off in 2020 when Alice was hired to be the Cellar Master and Vineyard Director at Henriot. Today, we'll talk about the Champagne region, the history of Henriot, famous women in Champagne, and the wines Alice is currently making. So relax, pour yourself a glass of something great, and enjoy the talk. Alice, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you here. Before we dive into Henriot, please give us a little bit of your background, where you come from and how you got into winemaking and how you ended up as the winemaker for Champagne Henriot.
That's a long story, huh?
We've got time.
First, I'm born in Champagne area. I grew up there. And the region is very particular, and big part of the economy is linked to the industry of champagne. So I think it was something that was part of me, champagne. I was with my family. I saw my family drink champagne very often, every weekend, every lunch and dinner with friends, with family. So it was something natural and part of the landscape for me, the champagne industry. And then when you are a student in this region, you work in the vine. This is something very natural, and this is traditional. So I did that, and I love that. I didn't think in the past that I wanted to do long studies because I loved to be outside. I loved to work in the vine. So I decided to do the beginning of my studies in viticulture. That was my first passion. And finally, more you know, less you know. So finally, I did 7 years of studies in viticulture and winemaking. The winemaking arrived because when you do viticulture, you are quite frustrated because the end of your job is during the harvest. So you only taste grapes. Okay, you have part of messages, but that's it. So I wanted to continue and see the results, the impact of the choices, the impact of terroir on the wines. So that's why I decided to become a winemaker. And I didn't know I wanted to be a winemaker when I was a baby, you imagine. But it was something natural, and I'm very happy today to do this choice in the past. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And how long have you had this position at Henriot?
I'm here since less than 6 years. I feel to be in this house since 20 years, maybe. It's funny. In Champagne, there's something special. When you join a house of champagne, you have a long story to learn, to understand. So you have many things to explore, and you work with wines that are sometimes with a lot of decades of aging, and you need to go in the archives and understand the story, what's happened. So you go through the time, through different episodes and stories. So that's really amazing. So when you join a house, I think after 1 year, you feel to be there since a very long time. It's very, very funny.
Yeah. One of the most difficult things, as I understand it, is learning how to create the assemblage for each of the different cuvées that you make, especially when you're coming from a viticultural background and you, as you say, you get to taste the grapes upon harvest, but that's about it. How long did it take for you to really master the craft of assemblage and creating the different cuvées. And did you apprentice for a period of time with the former winemaker?
In fact, it was not a difficult job. I think it was quite easy and natural because there is a part of story and a philosophy of craftsmanship that is defined since the beginning of the House of Henriot, since 1808. So when you join a house that is traditional, that is very attached to stories, that don't want to change everything with the new cellar master, and I think this is something very important, and I am attached to that. We need to protect the identity of the house, so I don't want to make Alice Tetienne wines, but Henriot wines. And there is a process with viticulture that is very important. A lot of the work is done in the vineyards, and the winemaking process is only there to reveal the vineyards. So first, your job is in majority focus on the vineyards. Then you do the harvest, of course, you obtain different wines, you taste them, and you need to respect a certain philosophy of blends for the most historical cuvée of the house, for example, that is Brut Souverain. And you have to select at least one wine per cru from the last harvest in order to represent the whole vineyard of the house, and then select all the wines that are different in terms of profile to obtain a palette of aromas that is very large, with a lot of different aromas, with a lot of nuances, because we want that something happens when we drink a glass of Henriot Brut Souverain. So finally, it's not really complicated. You create something with a vineyard, with different cru. We have 29 different cru in our vineyard today, and we need to represent the vineyard. So it's not something with the goal of aromatic profile. We don't want to have exactly the same profile every year. But thanks to this process, every year we have the same emotion. We have something similar because we tell the vineyard. And we have the wines of one harvest, and we have the reserve wine. You know, in Champagne, the blend is composed by different cru, different plots of vine, and different years. We have a very large palette of reserve wine at Henriot. We have around 10 years difference. And we have a reserve of blend that is from 1969. So since 1969, we do a perpetual reserve of Brut Souverain. So it permits to be sure to always have all the facets of personality of the vineyard through different periods. So I don't want to say it's easy, of course, but I think the process permits to be able to recreate easily, even if you are new in the company. Of course, it was a hard job of understanding the story, discover the profile, discover this philosophy of blend. I took a lot of time with my predecessor. I didn't have official commune moments with him, but we were friends. We were neighbors. We lived in the same village. So we took a lot of time together, like we did before I joined the House of Henriot. We reinvent the words every day together. So this is what we did. And it was fantastic because I learned a lot thanks to him. And I understood that the transmission from a cellar master to another is a big treasure. There is a transmission that is very unique, more than what is written in the archives, more than that. And that's one of the work I did when I joined the house. I wrote a lot of things because I was really afraid by the fact, okay, the cellar master has a big treasure of archives in his head. But if we disappear, what happens? So I decided to write many things and to present to the Henriot family a project about transmission, to be sure to have everything written and never lose our philosophy, initial philosophy, historical philosophy. Because in Champagne, everything takes time. We need many years to create a bottle of champagne. So we cannot evolve with the mode. We cannot reinvent ourselves every year. It's not possible. So we need to preserve our legacy and be able to transmit that to the next generation. So I'm sorry I speak a lot, you see.
No, but that's priceless. And you're absolutely right. I mean, you need to leave a roadmap for the future cellar masters that will take over after you start Alice Tetienne Champagne someday, maybe. So thank you for that. It was very fascinating. And I want to get back to the topic of the perpetual cuvée as we talk about the wines. But let's take a step back in time and go back to 1808. And I think a lot of people are very familiar with the story of Veuve Clicquot and Lily Boulanger, Madame Boulanger. But I think perhaps less well-known is Apolline Henriot, who's an equally deserving woman of Champagne. Tell us how that all came about.
And it's a beautiful story in my sense, more focused on the vineyards and the traditional craftsmanship of Champagne area, because Apolline Henriot, before the foundation of their house, she was a grower. So that means she had the feet in the ground, she cultivated vines. So this is a beautiful story. And that explains very well why at Henriot we are focused on the vineyards. And we take more time in the vine than in the wine. As a cellar master, I'm the director of the vineyards and the winemaking process because it's linked. And this is something historical. And Apolline Henriot had the desire to represent her vineyards. One day she decided to share that. She was passionate. She was passionate by the nature, the vineyard of Champagne, and to share the beauty of that. How do you do creating a champagne? So this is what happened in 1808. 1808 is the first moment she sold bottles. Okay. So the foundation of the house for us is the moment where she sold the first bottle of Henriot Brut Souverain I mentioned just before. There is another point very interesting in my sense, is the culture she had thanks to her family. Her grand-uncle was the chanoine Godinot. Don't be afraid if you don't know this man. He is very famous locally in Champagne area because it's a man who did a lot of things for Champagne area. He preserved part of the patrimoine in Reims, for example. And he was a grower too. And he created a book, a manual, that was something like, sorry for my translation, but way to cultivate vine and make wine in Champagne. So it was the first book about the process and the traditional craftsmanship of Champagne, about vine and wine. And the AOC was inspired with this book. So this is something very historical. And that's explained very well why Apolline Henriot decided to make her first champagne with a traditional savoir faire, with blends of cru, blends of years, etc. So that's why we are very attached at Henriot to the traditional way to give birth to champagne. That doesn't mean we are not modern, but traditional. And so this is the story of Henriot, a grower attached to traditional craftsmanship and passionate by vineyard, and she created champagne. She made it in order to represent her whole vineyard. So the beginning of the wine for her was about vineyards. And with the story, thanks to her, since 1808, every new creation in our collection, every new wine, every new cuvée are focused on vineyards. For example, we have a cuvée that was born in 1880. In 1880, it was a big transition for Henriot because Chardonnay joined the vineyard of Henriot that was uniquely planted in Pinot Noir until that time. And the Côte des Blancs joined the vineyard because it was uniquely from Montagne de Reims. The vineyard of Apolline was from Montagne de Reims in Pinot Noir. So 1880, thanks to the wedding between the fourth generation of the Henriot family, Paul Henriot, and a girl, another grower from Champagne, Marie Marguet, it gave birth to a union between the vineyards of the Henriot family and the Marguet family. And the Chardonnay became major and the Côte des Blancs became major. So we decided to pay tribute to this transition, creating a champagne that is Blanc Souverain. It's the same name, Souverain, but Blanc, so white, to mention the fact it's only Chardonnay. But it's made with the same philosophy than Apolline. It's the representation of the whole vineyard of the house, but uniquely planted in Chardonnay. In 1889, we created another champagne that is very important for us too. It's Cuvée des Enchanteleurs. It changed the name. Today it's named Emera. Emera. And this cuvée is the cuvée of the founding cru of the house, the most historical vineyards of the house. So the three cru of Apolline Henriot. Verzy, Verzenay, and Meille Champagne in Pinot Noir from Montagne de Reims, and the 3 crus that joined the vineyard in 1880, Avise, Mény-sur-Oger, and Chouilly in Chardonnay from Côte des Blancs. In 1889, we decided to go in conquest of new cru. It's the beginning of négociant. I mean, we had only our own vineyard at that time. And at this moment, in 1889, we began to buy grapes to growers. This is something very traditional in Champagne because it permitted to have more diversity of terroir. And we like diversity of terroir in Champagne.
Sure,
this is the DNA of Champagne. To make blend, you need diversity. So when there is a transition of vineyard, we create a Champagne. This is the life of Henriot. So we created Émérat to pay tribute to the historical vineyard. So our collection is really about vineyard thanks to Apolline. This is the craftsmanship defined by Apolline.
Yeah, so it makes your job that much easier having this wonderful fruit source to use to create. They say you can't create great wine without great grapes, obviously.
Yeah.
So just for the audience who may not be as familiar with Champagne, I just want to touch on the fact that there are 3 primary growing regions in Champagne. And from north to south, those are the Montagnes de Reims, the Vallée de la Marne, and the Côte de Blanc. And within these 3 regions are 17 villages with the highest classification in Champagne, which is known as Grand Cru. So unlike Burgundy, where the vineyard is classified, here in Champagne, it's the village and the vineyards within the village that are classified. So Alice just told us about the founding of this beginning back in 1880, and strictly the Montagne de Reims at the time and Pinot Noir. And then with the marriage in 1889, we were able to join the cru from the Côte de Blanc Chardonnay to Pinot Noir. So my question to you is, when did Meunier come into the picture?
30 years ago.
30 years ago.
Meunier is very young in our vineyards. We are attached to stories, and we consider the perennity or the continuity of a house is thanks to sustainable or stable vineyards, because the wines are explained by the origin, by the terroir. So that's important to focus on your geography, your initial geography. This is the philosophy of the house. But we have an open mindset, and this is important to discover other part of the vineyard, to follow other grapes, because with the climate change, we really realize that's important to be open, to be sure to ensure the future and ensure a high level of quality in the future, even if the climate changes. So 30 years ago, we decided to adopt the Meunier grape variety, but it's a very small proportion. It's about 5% of our vineyard. And in terms of volume, because we are only in Montagne de Reims, uniquely in Montagne de Reims, because it's historical sector, we are not in Vallée de la Marne. We have Meunier from Montagne de Reims. So with the climate change, it gives birth to yields that decreases with time. Because Meunier doesn't like extremes. Furthermore, in our sectors, I don't talk about all the Champagne region, but in our sectors, Meunier is in difficulty with extremes in the weather. And when it's too humid, too wet, that's difficult for Meunier because you have mildew. When it's too warm and with a high temperature, it's difficult because it dries the grapes, the berries. So the yields decreases. So we had 5% of the vineyards in 15. Today, it's about 3%.
I see.
So it decreases. Because he is not happy with time. But, and we like to have that because it contributes to diversity of terroir and profile. Meunier is an incredible grape variety that gives birth when you have the good moment of maturity with freshness, with acidity, citrus. It's wonderful, really wonderful. I love Meunier. I really love Meunier. I'm not frustrated to have not more Meunier, of course. I love Pinot Noir, I love Chardonnay, and I love the stories again. But Meunier is a very, very beautiful grape variety.
Yes. I don't think I've ever had anybody describe it in such a fashion. It's always sort of the third grape of Champagne, but I'm very interesting to hear you talk about it that way. So thank you for that. So tell us a little bit about a popular topic in the wine industry today, sustainability. What are the sustainable practices that you're doing in the vineyards at Henriot?
First, we have different objectives now. We need to fight the climate change, and we need to reduce our impact to reduce the impact on the climate change, So it's very challenging. We don't have the answer for everything. We need to reinvent ourselves in viticulture all the time. We need to reconsider the new weather we have. We have always new schemas. Every year is a new schema of weather. So that's really, really challenging. We decided a few years ago to begin to have certification, to valorize more our actions, to have a more rigorous way to work and officialize that we put things in place to fight the climate change and reduce our impact on the environment. So since 19, we are certified in HVE.
Mm-hmm.
Since 2020, we're certified in sustainable viticulture in Champagne. That is HVE plus more ambitious points about biodiversity, the carbon impact, the water, the energy, etc. We reduced the quantity of treatment, of course, and we don't use certain type of treatment. And then in 2021, we decided to begin a conversion in organic viticulture, and we are officially certified since January because it's a long time to convert.
Yes.
The vineyard.
2 years for the certification.
It's 3 years. If you do all the surface in one time. It's 5 years if you do progressive conversion. So it's quite long.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. 2021, we did half of the vineyard, and 2022, 100%. So 5 years of
so
conversion.
all the wines you are making then from your vineyards are certified organic.
Yeah, but we don't valorize the certification in our bottle. First, because we cannot. Because we have a perpetual reserve from 1969, so we are not able to do that. And I don't want to have in our collection one bottle organic and the rest not organic. It doesn't make sense. So it's not the objective. The objective is to have a certain ethic in our company.
Yes.
We are convinced by the fact it's a good thing to not use synthesis treatment, but organic viticulture is not the end. I mean, if you are organic, it's not a good point, because what about environment? Environment is about water, energy, biodiversity, carbon impact.
Yes.
And sometimes organic viticulture is quite bad for the carbon impact because you go more in the vineyard to work the soil, to keep the grass with not too much concurrence because you don't use herbicides. It's a good thing to not use herbicides, but your carbon impact can be worse than traditional way,
Yes.
So we need to find other solution, use electric material, etc. So we work on it. We use horses, for example, since last year. We begin because I don't want to have problem with horses. Horses are good during the winter, but during the summer, I don't want to have horses with treatment,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to displace the problem of carbon impact on horses and the animal safety, So this is very complicated. Everything is complicated,
It is, yeah. But it's a good point that you make that organic production is just one small part of sustainability.
Yeah.
There's so many other factors that come into play here.
It's only about type and quantity of treatment.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
So it cannot be enough. It's not enough. In 2020, we created a project that is named Alliance Terroir. The objective was to have a road and to have something clear for the team and have a project to have all the team with us because it's important to have the team and make project together. And it's about 3 pillars. The first one is the knowledge about our terroir and vineyard. We are absolutely sure that to make good job, you need to know your vineyard. So we do a lot of analysis on soils, on the vine, on the pressure of diseases, very precisely with AI. We use a lot of AI since 3 years. That permits to answer to the second pillar that is about precise viticulture. So same quantity of viticulture than a plot of vine. And then the third pillar is about our contribution to the continuity of the vineyard, to the protection of the vineyard in general. So it's all the action we can adopt that are positive action for the environment, on biodiversity, the fact to be certified, the fact to have the goal to reduce our carbon impact, etc. So Alliance Terroir is a big project that is our comportment every day. And I think it's a good thing because it's about quality, it's about knowledge, it's about transmission, it's about environment, and we need to work on all of those parts. So, yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Is there a website for Alliance Terroir that you can visit?
No, I can send you more information, of course, but it's not something, it's not a company.
Right, of course.
There's no cahier de charge, but this is everything we do need to be focused on those pillars. And this is our comportment. But yeah, of course, I can share. In our website, you have few information about.
Okay, we'll go to the website then. That's great.
Yeah.
So you've done a wonderful job in illustrating the picture of the wonderful vineyards that you have to work with at Henriot. Let's talk a little bit about the different cuvées, the different wines that you're making. Let's start with Brut Souverain, which is, of course, the pillar, the mainstay. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that you started, they started with a perpetual cuvée way back in 1969. This is a term that I think is still relatively new to most people in the wine industry, unless they're really, really involved in Champagne. Or lately, we're hearing a lot about the cuvée perpetuelle, the perpetual cuvée. But tell us a little bit about the history of that at Henriot.
First, the Brut Souverain was made with the traditional craftsmanship that is about blends. So it's a blend of cru, it's a blend of years. And the objective was to represent the whole vineyard of the house through all the different facets of personality. And you know that in 1 year, you have the influence of the vintage. So that's important to have other years to be able to share all the humor, the moods of the vineyards in different periods. You are not the same today than 10 years ago. So that's why it's important to represent you in your whole personality. This is the goal of reserve wine for Henriot. We have this culture of reserve wine that is important because in average, it's about 40% of the blend of Brut Souverain. So it's a high proportion.
It is high.
And in the 60s, it was the beginning of stainless steel tank. And the seventh generation of the Henriot family, Joseph Henriot, was really sure that the secret of a good champagne was about reserve wines. So in 65, he switched completely from barrels to stainless steel tank. And it was the best opportunity to keep wines because stainless steel tank permit to keep wines without any outside influence.
Yeah, no ingress of oxygen.
There's no influence.
Anything, right?
It's just natural aging. It's just aging by the time, not by oxygen, by wood, by etc. So for him, it was the best visionary material to keep wines.
And he must have been one of the very first to adopt stainless steel then in Champagne. Very interesting.
Yeah, it was from the milk industry, the stainless steel tank, and many houses began to do that. But him, no transition progressive, it was from barrels to stainless steel tank from a year to another. It was crazy because he wanted to have the same way to do the wines, because he was absolutely obsessed by the fact the difference from a wine to another needed to be only the origin, not the vinification or the winemaking, And he decided to keep more wines. And with time, he kept more wines. So we have more different years in the cellar, more quantity, more volumes. He increased the proportion of reserve wine in the blend of Brut Souverain. And in 69, he decided to keep part of the blend of Brut Souverain to use it next year. So every year in our blend of Brut Souverain, we add the last blend from last year. So every year we do a new blend of Brut Souverain, we bottle a part of this blend and we keep a part of this blend in stainless steel tank. So from 69, we do that. That means today in the market, you have the 2020 base of Brut Souverain. This is my first official blend. And you have all the harvest from 1969 to 2020 thanks to this perpetual reserve. Many houses do that. It was not something really famous in the past, or Champenois didn't talk about that because we were quite secret in the past, right? It was difficult to know how we made champagne in the past. We are more transparent now. I think it's the new expectation from the consumers now. They want to know what there is in the bottle. And Champenois understood it was important to share. So now we know the way we give birth to the reserve wine, to the blend, and somebody tell we have perpetual reserve for our non-vintage and now. I don't know who was the first house to do that, but I think we were probably one of the first because stainless steel tank, because it was less easy with the wood. So maybe one of the first, but not the only house to do that, of course. Right. That permits to have a certain consistency, even if it's not the goal. We don't want to have exactly the same taste from a year to another. But in champagne, the particularity is that you can recognize easily the profile, the style of a house, and thanks to this process of blend and perpetual reserve, you have many things. And it permits to have a lot of nuances, a lot of contrast, a lot of density, and have very generous in wines. For Henriot, I think it explains the generosity we have in our wines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And that was a very good explanation of what a perpetual reserve is, because a lot of people don't really understand that. So that was great. So tell us about some of the other wines.
Yeah. As I said before, we have a collection that is focused on vineyards. So we have the Brut Souverain, we have the Blanc Souverain that is made with exactly the same philosophy, but only with the vineyard planted in Chardonnay from 1880. We have the Émérat that is from 1889 with the historical vineyard. It's only 1 year. We don't do it every year because it's a rare and very intimate cuvée in terms of volume. It's very small because we need to have the 6 founding cru reconcile in terms of volume, in terms of quality. And when we put the cru together, it needs to match. Sometimes you can have individually amazing wines, and when you put them together, it can fight. This is the magic of blend. And Émérat is the only cuvée that is a recipe. So we need to respect equal part in terms of volume of each historical cru. So it's really strict, and we don't want to play. And that's important to respect the story again. If we want to play, we have many possibilities. We can create a new champagne. We can do a vintage to tell the story of a year. So we have a vintage in our collection. We select all the plots of wine that for us represent the caricature of the year. Because when you taste all the wines, we obtain in average 120 different wines per year. We taste those wines during 4 or 5 months before the blend. And sometimes we have a message that is commune from a terroir to another, and we can consider this is the message of the year. So we select those wine and we create a blend of vintage. And then we have, since more recently, we have one terroir cuvée. This is named L'Inattendu. It's not a marketing name. That means the unexpected. Mm-hmm. If there are claim, that's my creation. Because when we tasted for the first time this mono terroir cuvée, it's not my creation, only the name. But when I joined the house, I tasted that with the Henriot family, and they did blind tasting and what you think. And, I said, oh, I think it's Henriot. It's wonderful. I think it's Chardonnay, blah, blah. But I don't understand. It doesn't look to be a blend, because there is a position taken, not the density we have normally at Henriot, etc. And they said, yes, it's not a blend. It's only one terroir. It's one plot from this cru from Avis in Chardonnay. And I said, it's amazing. Why it's not in the market? It's just crazy. Oh, Alice, we are quite traditional, and normally Henriot is about blends. Yes, but to make blend, you have that. And it's the opportunity to explain to people what happens in the tasting room. And we have all of those. You imagine, people will understand. We have 100 and 120 l'inattendu to taste, to create blend. That's amazing. So since a few years, we have this cuvée, and To be honest, I will push that. I do more and more. I do per year at least 3 different inattendus. It can be a Pinot Noir. It can be from this cru, this blood. It's a free white pepper.
Sure, why not? You've got a blank canvas and lots of paint.
We can do everything.
Exactly.
It's not about volume. It's very intimate. It can be 2 bottles if we want. And then in our collection, we have a perpetual reserve. That is only perpetual reserve. That is Cuve 38. That was created by Joseph Henriot. Joseph Henriot, absolutely obsessed by the reserves wines. It's quite different than Brut Souverain. Brut Souverain, we add the last blend to the new harvest, you know.
Right.
The Cuve 38, this is the name of the tank.
Okay.
It's very simple.
I was going to ask.
It's old wines, and every year we add a small volume of the new harvest. This is more the official way to do a perpetual reserve, a Solera.
Right,
you know,
a Solera system, yes.
So it's only 1 tank that was made for the first time in 1990 by Joseph, and every year he added the new harvest. He wanted to make his perfect wines for him with all the elements he loved: Chardonnay, Côte des Blancs, only Grand Cru from Côte des Blancs, and reserves wines. So he did that every year. He added the new harvest. He tasted every year. And in 2007, so you see, he was very passionate.
Yes.
He considered it was ready to be bottled, but because the Magnum was its favorite size, he only do it in Magnum. So
of course, why not?
yeah. And then we have, like every Champenois, the particularity of Champagne is to have a collection with diversity of Champagne, of profile, of personalities, of cuvée. Why? Because we have one appellation for vineyards composed by many different crus, many different terroirs. So we have a lot of choices possible. And we love in Champagne to play, to have food pairing with only sparkling wine. You can play and have different identities. That's magic. So in the 70s, it was the beginning of the rosé Champagne, and the Henriot family decided to make it in order to complete the collection by profiles in terms of aromas they didn't have. So they created something quite out of the box, because the rosé universe is not about vineyards in our collection. It's about aromatic profile. So we have a goal. We know with a non-vintage rosé, we want to have something that we cannot recognize it's a rosé by blind tasting. It's mineral, it's citrus, yuzu, etc. And the rosé vintage is about spices, curry, curcuma, thyme. It's very strong, and it can be paired, for example, with meat, beef, duck, with sauce, very, very charismatic. And so we have a collection with a lot of diversity, but with a backbone of vineyards.
Very good. Well, that just summed up the philosophy right there, which was, I was going to ask you, what's your philosophy in 1 sentence? And thank you. You must have read my mind. Well, thank you so much, Alice. It's amazing how quickly time goes by. But that was a wonderful conversation, and it really, really nice to meet you and hear the Henriot story, and to hear your story as well.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of our future Served Up episodes. Cheers.